This president stated that good news regarding the second round of US-Iran talks could emerge by Friday. Until now, there had been little indication that the talks could resume. Trump announced yesterday that he was extending the ceasefire with Iran indefinitely, but Iranian negotiators called this move a ploy by the American administration to buy time to prepare for a new strike. On Wednesday, sources in Islamabad, where the second round will take place if the parties decide to return to the negotiating table, said there was positive momentum in Pakistan's mediation efforts. They said negotiations could resume within the next 36 to 72 hours. Asked by the New York Post about the chances of a diplomatic breakthrough, Trump wrote in a text message to the publication, "It's possible." President Trump, on Tuesday, thus leader said he was extending the ceasefire with Tehran until the divided Iranian leadership presented a unified proposal on next steps. "I have instructed our military to continue the blockade and otherwise remain ready and capable, and will therefore extend the ceasefire until their proposal is presented and negotiations are concluded, one way or another," he wrote on his social media account, Truth Social. On Wednesday, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said reports that the extended ceasefire would be limited to 3 to 5 days were not true. According to her, Donald Trump did not set any deadlines. He is happy with the effect of the naval blockade, which has effectively stopped the export of Iranian oil, and understands that Iran is in a very weak position. She also stated that as economic pressure on Iran continues even under the ceasefire, the mood in Tehran. Skip WhatsApp channel advertisement and continue reading. WhatsApp BBC channel. On WhatsApp here we publish only the most important news and the most interesting texts. The channel is available to non-Russian numbers. Subscribe. The end of the story. WhatsApp channel advertisement. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian said the US blockade of Iranian ports, threats and what he called violations of commitments were the main obstacles to genuine negotiations with Washington. In a post on the social network X, he noted that Iran welcomed the dialogue and agreement and continues to do so. Addressing the American side, Pezeshkian said that the whole world sees your endless hypocritical rhetoric and the contradiction between your statements and actions. Earlier, Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesman Esmail Baghai said the country was closely monitoring developments. It's in the political arena in response to Pakistan's calls for a ceasefire, the state-run IRNA news agency reported. In a telegram message quoted by IRNA, Baghai said Iran would take necessary and appropriate measures to protect the country's national interests and security. At the same time, many experts note that Tehran will cling to any delay in military action and will most likely sit down at the negotiating table again. As BBC Persian correspondent Giargol reports from Islamabad, there is a sense that Iranian authorities fear a new wave of popular protests amid ongoing economic pressure and censorship. Human rights groups say at least 14 people have been executed in recent weeks, and the number of death sentences for those involved in past protests is growing. Some accused of spying for Israel. These executions are a clear sign that the regime seriously fears a new uprising. Gul believes besieged militia commanders appear on state television, warning that domestic dissent will be harshly suppressed, and that the fight against external adversaries, this and Israel, will continue. On Wednesday evening, Trump wrote in Truth Social that Tehran had decided to pardon 8 women who had been sentenced to death. Excellent news. I was just informed that the 8 female activists scheduled for execution in Iran this evening will not be executed. 4 of them will be immediately released, and 4 will be sentenced to 1 month in prison. I am very grateful to Iran and its leadership for heeding my request as President of the United States and canceling the scheduled executions, he wrote. Attacks in the Strait of Hormuz. File photo of the Panamanian cruise liner MSC Francesca. Photo by Agustin Alapont via Marine Traffic. Photo caption. File photo of the Panamanian cruise liner MSC Francesca. Over the past 24 hours, 3 cargo ships were attacked in the Strait of Hormuz by the naval forces of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Iranian media reported. The Maritime Trade Office UKTO reported that an IRGC boat opened fire on the container ship Epaminondas, owned by a Greek company. The incident occurred in the Strait of Hormuz, 15 nautical miles northeast of Oman, causing serious damage to the vessel. The Panamanian-flagged Euphoria, owned by a UE company, was also attacked 8 nautical miles west of Iran, Vanguard and UKTO reported. No crew members were injured, and no damage was reported. The Panamanian-flagged MSC Francesca was attacked approximately 6 nautical miles off the coast of Iran as it exited the strait into the Gulf of Oman. According to analytics firm Vanguard, the vessel reported damage to the hull and living quarters. The Iraq Navy stated that the MSC Francesca and Epaminondas were detained and sent toward the Iranian coast. Iranian authorities claimed they operated without necessary permission and interfered with navigation systems. However, Greek Foreign Minister Georgos Geropetrides said the Greek company's vessel was not detained. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said Wednesday evening that Iran's detention of the ships did not violate the ceasefire. Analysis by Paul Adams, BBC diplomatic correspondent. The ceasefire between Iran, the United States and Israel, which was due to expire on Wednesday, is currently holding, but the situation in the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most important shipping lanes, remains extremely tense. Betting that the situation won't spiral out of control would be foolish. Islamabad is once again awaiting the arrival of Iranian and US representatives for peace talks. Parts of the city remain closed, signs are in place, and the hotel that has already hosted high-ranking guests, although now empty, is still awaiting the return of the delegations. However, the atmosphere in the city has changed. The previous mood has been replaced by a grim realization that Pakistan's opportunity to prove itself on the international stage to mediate and broker some kind of agreement between sworn enemies may have slipped from Islamabad's grasp, at least for now. Nevertheless, Pakistan is not giving up. Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif, who invested significant diplomatic efforts in facilitating the talks, wrote on social media that the country will continue to make sincere efforts to achieve a negotiated settlement to the conflict. Donald Trump, for his part, told at least one reporter that an agreement was still possible in the coming days. It's difficult to know whether this reflects the reality of the situation or the voice of an impatient politician eager to get the Iranian issue off the priority list as quickly as possible before King Charles II's visit to Washington next week and Trump's expected trip to China soon after. Iran was skeptical of this president's assertion that by extending the ceasefire, he was giving Tehran time to develop a unified position. However, it is unlikely that the regime, already seriously weakened by the war, would violate the ceasefire and thereby provoke new airstrikes. Against this backdrop, the question arises, how should we interpret the Iranian delegation's reluctance to board a plane for the short flight to Islamabad? Iran accuses the US of violating its obligations and points to Washington's inconsistent behavior. Donald Trump's public statements, which sharply contradict each other from threats of apocalyptic punishment to offers of compromise, while also claiming that Iran has already made significant concessions, have only complicated the situation. For a politician who previously claimed to have already achieved regime change in Iran, wasn't this an admission that Washington itself doesn't fully understand who exactly it's negotiating with? The full version of Paul Adams's article in English can be read on the BBC News website. The path to truce let us recall how events have unfolded since the beginning of April. In the effort to achieve a ceasefire in various areas of the conflict in the Middle East, the United States and Iran. April 8, Pakistan, which brokered the ceasefire, announces a 2-week ceasefire between the US and Iran, which was scheduled to expire on April 22. Donald Trump stated that the agreement was conditional on the opening of the Strait of Hormuz. April 11. Senior US and Iranian officials, including Vice President J.D. Vance and Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araqi, hold talks in Pakistan. After 21 hours of discussions, Washington and Tehran remain far from reaching a compromise on key issues. April 12. Trump announces a blockade of Iranian shipping after talks in Islamabad fail, while Iran continues its own blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. April 21. Trump agrees to extend the ceasefire indefinitely to allow the sides to continue negotiations. Israel and Lebanon. April 14. Lebanon and Israel hold their first diplomatic talks since 1993, a rare contact aimed at ending fighting between Israel and the Iranian-backed Hezbollah militant group operating in southern Lebanon. April 16. The United States announces a 10-day ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon, set to expire on April 26. Donald Trump called on Hezbollah, which had been exchanging strikes with Israel, to adhere to the ceasefire. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu stated that Israeli troops would remain within 10 kilometers of southern Lebanon, despite the ceasefire.